succeed. He was a small man with bread and was very nervous. I remember how the crowd of his neck were drawn taut. For years, he had been trying to cure people of illness by the method called sightlessness. The idea was the passion of his life. "I came here because I am tired," he said dejectedly. "My body is not tired, but something inside me is old and worn out. I want joy. For a few days or weeks, I would like to forget men and women and the influence that make them the sick things they are." There is a note that comes into a human voice by which you may know real wellness. It comes when one has been trying with all his heart and soul to think his way along some difficult road of thought. Of a sudden, he finds himself unable to go on. Something within him stops. A tiny explosion takes place. He bursts into words and talks, perhaps foolishly. Little side currents of his nature he didn't know well they run out and get themselves expressed. It is at such times that a man boasts, uses big words, makes a fool of him in general. And so it was the daughter became sure. He jumped up from the step where we had been sitting, talking, and walked out. "You come from the West. You have kept away from people. You have preserved yourself, damn you." I haven't." His voice had indeed become shrill. "I had entered into life. I have gone beneath the surface of the life of men and women. Women especially I have studied. Our women, here in America." "You have loved them?" I suggest. "Yes," he said. "Yes, you're right there. I done that. It is the only way I get at things. I have to try to love. You see how that is? It's the only way. Love must be in the beginning of things with me." I began to sense the depths of his wellness. "We will go swim in the lake," I urged. "I don't want to swim or do any damn polluting things. I want to run and shout," he declared. "For a while, for a few hours, I want to be like a dead leaf blown by the window. I want to be like a dead leaf blown by the winds over these hills. I have one desire and one only, to free myself." We walked in a dusty country road. I wanted him to know that I thought I understood, so I put the gaze in my own way. When he stopped and stared at me, I talked. "You are no more and no better than myself," I declared. "You are a dog that has rolled in a fall, and because you are not quite a dog, you don't like to smell your own hide." In turn, my voice became shrill. "You blind fool!" I cried impatiently. "Men like you are fools. You cannot go along the road. It is given to no man to venture far along the road of life." I became passionately in earnest. "The illness you pretend to cure is the universal illness," I said. "The things you want to do cannot be done. For, do you expect to love to be understood?" We stood in the road and looked at each other. The suggestion of a sinner played about the corners of his mouth. He put a hand on my shoulder and shook me. "How smart we are! How appealing we put things!" He spat the words out and then turned and walked a little way. "You think you understand, but you don't understand," he cried. "What you say can be done can be done. You are a liar. You cannot be so dignified without missing something valuable and fine. You miss the whole point. The lives of people are like you, like young tree and the lives of people are like young trees in the forest. They are being choked by climbing winds. The winds are all thoughts and beliefs planted by dead men. And myself covered by a crawling, creeping wings that choke me. He laughed brightly. And that's why I want to run and play, he said. I want to be blown by the wind over hills. I want to be die and be born again. And I'm only a tree covered with wings and slowly dying. I am, you see, weary and want to be made clean. I am a mature version timidly into life. You conclude. I'm weary and want to be made clean. I'm covered by creeping, crawling things. A woman from Law came here to Chicago and took a room in a house on the west side. He was about 27 years old and ostensibly, he came to the city to study advanced method for teaching music. A certain young man also lived in the west side house. His room faced a long hall on the second floor of the house, and one taken by the woman was across the hall facing his room. In regard to the young man, there is something very sweet in his nature. He is a painter, but I have often wished he would decide to become a writer. He tells things without an understanding, and he does not paint brilliantly. And so, the woman from Law lived in the west side house and came home from the city in the evening. She looked like a thousand other women one sees in the streets every day. The only thing that at all made her stand out among the women in the crowd was that she was a little lame. Her right foot was slightly deformed, and she walked in a limp. For 3 months, she lived in the house. Well, she was the only woman except the landlady. And then a feeling in regard to her began to grow up among the men of the house. The men all said the same thing concerning her. When they met in the hallway at the front of the house, they stopped, laughed, and whispered. She wants a lover, they said and winked. She may not know it, but a lover is what she needs. One knowing Chicago and Chicago men would think that an easy one to be satisfied. I laughed when my friend, whose name is Laurie, told me the story, but he did not laugh. He shook his head. It wasn't so easy, he said. There would be no story where the matter that simple. Laurie tried to explain. Whenever a man approached her, she became alarmed, he said. Men kept smiling and speaking to her. They invited her to dinner and to the theater, but nothing would induce her to walk in the streets with men. She never went into the streets at night. When a man stopped and tried to talk with her in the hallway, she turned her eyes to the floor and then ran into her room. Once the young Giles Clark, who lived there, induced her to sit with him on the steps before the house. He was a sentimental fellow, and took hold of her hand when she began to cry. She was alarmed and arose. He put a hand on her shoulder and tried to explain, but under the touch of his fingers, her whole body shook with terror. "Don't touch me!" she cried. "Don't let your hand touch me!" She began to scream, and people passing in the street stopped to listen. The dry goods clerk was alarmed and ran upstairs to his own room. He bolted the room and stopped listening. "It is a trick," he declared in a trembling voice. "She is trying to make trouble. I did nothing to her. It was an accident, and anyway, what's the matter? I only touched her arm with my fingers." Perhaps a dozen times Laurie had spoken to me of the experience of the low woman in the West Side house. The men there began to hate her. Although she would have nothing to do with them, she would not let them alone. In 100 ways she continually she continually invited approaches that when made, she replied. When she stood naked in the bathroom facing the hallway while the men passed up and down, she left the door slim ajar. There was a calm in the living room downstairs, and when men were present, she would sometimes enter and, without saying a word, threw herself down before them. On the couch, she lay with lips drawn slightly apart. Her eyes stared at the ceiling. Her whole physical being seemed to be waiting for something. The sense of her filled in the room. The men standing about pretended not to see. They talked loudly. Embarrassment took possession of them, and one by one they crept quickly away. One evening, the woman was ordered to leave the house. Someone, perhaps the dry goods clerk, had talked to the landlady, and she acted at once. "If you leave tonight, I should like it that much better," Laurie heard the elder woman's voice saying. She stood in the hallway before the low woman's room. The landlady's voice rang through the house. "Roy, the painter, is tall and lean, and his life has been spent in devotion to ideas. The passions of his brain have consumed the passions of his body. His income is small, and he has not married. Perhaps she has never had a sweetheart. He is not without physical desire, but he is not primarily concerned with the desire." On the evening, when the law woman was ordered to leave the West Side house, she waited until she saw the landlady had gone downstairs, and then went into Laurie's room. It was about 8 o'clock, and he sat by a window reading a book. The woman did not knock but opened the door. She said nothing but ran across the floor and knelt at his feet. Laurie said that her twisted foot made her run like a wounded bird, that her eyes were burning, and that her breath came in deep gasps. "Take me," she said, putting her face down up his knees and trembling violently. "Take me quickly. There must be a beginning to things. I can't stand waiting. You must take me at once." Young may be quite sure Laurie was perplexed by all this. From what he said, I gathered that until that evening he had hardly noticed the woman. I suppose of all the men in the house, he had been the most indifferent to her. In the room, something happened. The landlady followed the woman when she ran to Laurie, and the two men confronted him. The woman from Law knelt trembling and frightened at his feet. The landlady was indignant. Laurie acted on impulse. An inspiration came to him. Putting his hand on the kneeling woman's shoulder, he shook her violently. "Now, behave yourself," he said quickly. I will keep my promise." He turned to the landlady and smiled. "We have been engaged to be married," he said. "We have quarreled. She came here to be near me. She has been unwell and excited. I will take her away. Please don't let yourself be annoyed. I will take her away." When the woman and Laurie go out of the house, she stopped weeping and put her hand on his. Her face had all gone away. He found a room for her in another house and then went with her into a park and sat on the beach. "Everything Laurie has told me concerning this woman's dress might believe in what I said to the man that day in the mountains. You cannot venture along the road of life." On the beach, he and the woman talked until midnight, and he saw and talked with her many times later. Nothing came of it. She went back, I suppose, to her place in the West, in the place from which she had come to the woman and be a teacher of music. She was one of 4 sisters, all engaged in the same sort of work, and Laurie says, all quite capable of women. Their father had died when the eldest girl was not yet 10, and 5 years later, her mother died also. The girls had a house and a garden. In the nature of things, I cannot know what the life of the woman will like, but of this one may be quite certain. They talked only of women's affairs. Thought only of women's affairs. No one of them ever had a lover. For years, no man came near the house. Of them all, only the youngest, the one who came to Chicago, was visibly affected by the utterly female quality of their lives. It did something to her. All day and every day she taught music to young girls and then went home to the woman. When she was 25, she began to think and to dream of men. During the day and through the evening, she talked with women of women's affairs, and all the time she wanted desperately to be loved by a man. She went to Chicago with that hope in mind. Laurie explained her attitude in the matter and her strange behavior in the West Side house by saying she had thought too much and acted too little. The life force within her became decentralized, he declared, and she wanted to could not achieve. The living force within could not find expression. When it could not get expressed in one way, it took another. Sex spread itself out over her body. It permeated the very fibre of her being. At the least, she was sex-personified. Sex become conceited and impersonal. Certain ways, the touch of a man's hand, something even the sight of men passing in the streets did something to her. Yesterday, I saw Laurie and he talked to me again of the woman and the strange and terrible fate. We walked in the park and by the lake. As we went along, the figure of the woman kept coming into my mind. An idea came to me. You may have been her lover, I said. That was possible. She was not afraid of you. Laurie stopped, like the doctor who was so sure of his ability to walk into lives. He grew angry and sulked. For a moment, he stared at the man, and then a rather odd thing happened. Words said by the other man in the dusty road in the hills became to Laurie's lips and were saying over again. The suggestion of a signal played about the corners of his mouth. How smart we are, how prettily we put things, he said. The voice of a young man who walked with me in the park by the lake in the city became shrill. I sensed the wildness in him. Then he laughed and said quietly and softly, "It isn't so simple. By being sure of yourself and you are in danger of losing all the romance of life, you miss the whole point. Nothing in life can be settled so definitely. The woman, you see, was like a young tree chucked by a cleaning wind. The thing that wrapped her about and shut out the light. She was a grasshopper, as many trees in the forest are grasshoppers. Her problem was such a difficult one, and that thinking of it had changed the whole current of my life. At first, I was like you. I was quite sure. I thought I would be her lover and the centered matter." Laurie turned and walked a little way. Then he came back. And took hold of my arm. A passionate earnestness took possession of him. His voice trembled. He needed a lover. Yes, the men in the house were quite right about that, he said. He needed a lover, and at the same time a lover was not what she needed. The need of a lover was, after all, a quite secondary thing. She needed to be loved, to be long and quietly and patiently loved. To be sure, she is a grasshopper, but then all the people in the world are grasshoppers. We all need to be loved. What would cure her would cure the rest of us also. The disease she had is, you see, universal. We all wanted to be loved, and the world has no plan for creating our lovers. Laurie's voice dropped and he walked beside me in silence. We turned away from the lake and walked down the trees. I looked closely at him. The curls of his neck were drawn taut. I have seen under the shell of life, and I am afraid. He mused. I am myself like a woman. I am covered with trembling, crawling wing-like things. I cannot be a lover. I am not subtle or patient enough. I am paying all depths, all thoughts and beliefs. Seeds planted by dead men spring up my soul and choke me. For a long time, we walked and Lloyd talked. voicing the thoughts that came into his mind. I listened in silence. His mind struck upon the refrain voiced by the man in the mountains. I would like to be a dead giant thing, he muttered, looking at the leaves scattered over the grass. I would like to be a leaf blowing away by the wind. He looked up and his eyes turned to where among the trees we could see the lake in the distance. I am weary and want to be made clean. I am a man covered by creeping, crawling things. I would like to be dead and blown by the wind over limitless waters. He said, I want more than anything else in the world and to be clean.